What happens at laser tag never stays at laser tag.
Laser Unfocused Tag Talk.
Laser Unfocused Tag Talk.
I feel like you could be like in Ghostbusters or something.
Oh my God, you have got some stories.
Let's talk about laser tag.
Who knew you were a laser tag legend?
Time to get laser unfocused. Tag Talk with Tivia.
Welcome to Laser Unfocused Tag Talk. Hi, I'm Tivia. When you love laser tag with a passion, you want the world to join you in the experience. From years as a competitive player in Australia to now being part of creating the Laser Sports Academy, we'll get an international perspective from someone dedicated to sharing his love of the game. I'm delighted to be joined today by Ben Baker, who the laser tag community will know as Bootza, and he is an operator of Laser Zone in Brisbane, Australia, and also one of the founders of Laser Sports Academy. And I'm so excited to be talking with him down in Australia. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks so much, Tivia. It's great to be here.
Well, I would love to just kind of start from the very beginning and get a feel of how did you get involved in laser tag in the beginning? Where did you first play and what brought you from your first game to where you are now?
Okay, so it's quite a story. I started in the 90s back with version 4 zone systems, not 1994. Got dragged down to a site by a friend. And I was kind of just playing socially, but really, I really hassled the owner for a job. I really wanted to work there. And I finally broke through and got a job. But part of the employment conditions was that we had to play league. Back in the 90s, he was allowed to do that. Much to my dismay, I was like not totally up for it. But I complied and I played league. And before I knew it, I'd fallen in love with the sport. And I was playing league there for about 5 years, and I never was really great at sport. I was kind of okay, but it was finally something I felt like I was okay at. And in 2001, we went to our first national titles, the West Australian team. So this was in Northbridge in Western Australia. Was my first site that I played and worked at. And then we went all the way to the other side of the country onto the east coast to a place called Sunshine Coast, where I played my first national titles. And fell in love with that site, in fact. And then 2 years later, I ended up going in partnership with a friend of mine, and we bought the site. And I moved from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast, and I started my journey as a Queensland player. Queensland is the state that we play in. And I proceeded to start playing for Queensland and the national titles, and built a community up there, built a scene up there. It was it kind of had one when I was there, but I changed a lot of stuff when I got there, and we lost a lot of players. They didn't really like how the new things were getting run. And then we built again from the ground up. And we built it into a really strong state now. We have 2 sites that contribute players to the national titles, and we have a very successful group. And I've been playing all the way through pretty much. I've only missed, I think I'm up to my 19th or 20th national titles now that I've played. And in that time, I've gone and played in the world titles as well over in the US and Finland. Played the Sweden Nationals competition that they call Sweenats. And I played we hosted the world's competition in Sunshine Coast in 2014 as well. So that's a quick, brief summary. There's a lot of stories in between, of course, but that's kind of an overview of how I've gotten into it and where I've gotten to today.
Very good. And you are predominantly a zone player, correct?
Well, I would say completely a zone player.
Okay.
In Australia, we've really only got the option of a zone and laser force, and the zone system is much more successful in terms of the sporting side of things. And I did try out the laser force. The laser force equipment's great. The game they play is very different to our game, and I wasn't overly keen on they have strict restrictions on how you can hold the phaser, and you've got to show a sensor. And I kind of felt that the zone game was a more athletic game, and it really appealed to me a lot more. So I got into the zone side of things.
Well, that's where I began as well. And so I'm very intrigued to find out a little bit about how it is played in other areas of the world. So, of course, you know that we just had the Nationals here in the United States, but maybe you could give an overview of what the laser tag scene and the zone scene specifically kind of looks like in other parts of the world where you've played, and what some of the big things are that are coming up.
Yeah, so Australia is kind of doing its own thing very much compared to what you would say the US and European scenes are doing. The US and European scenes have particular play style where they play 1 shot per second with stuns on. In Australia, we play 2 shots a second and no stuns, which doesn't sound like a massive change, but it is significant in the kind of things that are the skills that are awarded in the game. So the US and the European styles are value brawling a lot. They love the dodging and all that kind of thing. And the Australian style game doesn't quite have that element. But we have I'd like to say we have a different element, which is when it comes to the base play, because you can get 2 shots out a second, it means you can bust into a base, you can take multiple targets out, and you can do a big kind of a solo great thing in that moment. So they both, I love playing the European and US formats, but in Australia, that's the direction we went on in the early days. And in Australia, we have like one big tournament to rule them all, so to speak, which is the Zone Laser Tag Australasian Championships. It's a very successful tournament. It started in 1999 by a group of operators, which were also enthusiasts. And that was kind of the advantage we had in Australia, that we had, operators who were willing to not make a lot of money out of the tournament for, a few years to get it running. And then after maybe 5 or 10 years, it really started to grow. And we're actually off to do the next Zone Laser Tag Australasian Championships. It's called ZELTAC. We're off to do the next ZELTAC tournament in about a month in Hobart, and we've got 30 teams for this one. We've had as many as 37, I think, is the maximum we've had. So we usually range in that 30 to 35 range. The level is very high. Because of the age and the maturity of the competition, the skill level is very high, and that can some of the European teams that have come over can attest to that. We had GP visit for a couple of years, which are the classic Finland team, which have won Worlds multiple times and are probably one of the best teams to ever play the game, if not the best team to ever play the game. They came over in their first year, got 7th or in that range, and then they moved up. I think they got 4th in their second year, and then they just missed out on winning in their 3rd year. So even a team as great as them took a few years to be able to get to the top of it. It's a very well-run tournament too. So we have a big volunteer team. We have a media crew. So we broadcast all we have volunteer commentators, and we broadcast all the games. And essentially, the host site shuts down completely for the best part of 2 weeks to the public. And we run games from 8 a.m. in the morning through to midnight at night. There's like 8 days of competition plus 4 or 5 days of training. And it's a huge event, essentially. So, that's kind of one of the main differences, is that we focus very heavily on our ZELTAC tournament, and we have a few satellite tournaments, which we have a couple that are called pre-nats, where all the teams that want to go to nationals will essentially go to the pre-nats tournaments to kind of learn the home arena, and then they'll go, but they're kind of like 10 to 15 teams ish that will go to one of those tournaments, and then the ZELTAC will have 30 to 35 teams. And we have a few other smaller invitational tournaments, like the New Zealand have an invitational tournament that they just completed in the last month as well. But in Europe, they have a different kind of a setup where they have smaller tournaments, but they have them regularly throughout the year. So you've got the German nationals, then you've got the Finnish nationals, then you've got the Swedish nationals, and they might get between 10 and 20 teams to these events, and the players travel around, and you'll get a different collection of teams at each event. Some teams will compete at every event, but some teams will only compete at a particular event. But in Australia, everybody goes to the nationals, or ZELTAC as it's called. So that's probably, I guess, the main difference. But in terms of gameplay, all the teams play with 3 teams in the arena. Generally it's 5-person teams. We all have base evacuation, which for people that might not be familiar with that, it's you have a protected zone around the base, and you've got to be active to be in that area. So a lot of the battling happens for the key real estate around the base target, so all of those things are the same across countries. The main difference is just the 1 shot per second and stuns that you get on the European and US formats. And then of course you've got France have got a scene as well, but they're kind of doing their own thing as well. They play a game where I don't know it completely, but they have 4v4, and one team defends and one team attacks, and then they swap over, and it's just purely off base destroys. There's no score involved outside of that, and they play 4 shots a second. They play a rapid fire game. So they're kind of doing their own thing. They did host the Worlds in 2017 as well, but yeah, the rest of us are kind of, we go to each other's events. So, we've had European teams come to the Australian Nationals, and we've got another one coming this year with a US player, Invalid, who's joining that team as well. Whereas the French don't sort of mix as much as well within the other communities. So that's kind of an overlay of what I've seen. And then you've got the Worlds, which is like essentially a US/European format. It's slightly different, but it's its own thing. And we run that every few years. And the newest Worlds has just been announced, which will be in New Zealand in November 2024. And one of the big exciting things about that tournament is that there's some local players there, Popeyes and VDark, who have invented player tracking technology that has been tested for the first time at the most recent New Zealand Invitationals, which is looking really exciting for another progress in the sport, and just in terms of teams being able to learn and at an accelerated rate. So new players coming in and being able to learn the sport quicker because they've got more information and they can learn off the experienced players at a quicker rate. So yeah, there's some it's really exciting what that could hold for us in 2024 in New Zealand.
Absolutely. And that player tracking technology is an interesting concept. And so this is player developed, you're saying?
Yeah.
What can you share about this?
They actually have some videos out. They tested it at, as I was saying, at the New Zealand Invites. Essentially, they have got some kind of technology on the pack, I think, that tracks like some kind of RFID technology, and then they've got sensors all through the arena, and they kind of triangulate the location of the players based upon how far this sensor is from that, like this pack is from that sensor and that sensor and that sensor kind of thing. And it somehow does the mathematics and live can figure it all out. From what I understand, I didn't get a huge opportunity to watch any of the streams that they had. But from what I have heard from other players, you can really learn what's going on in there. And you can really learn from other players and how they're playing. And, it opens up a whole bunch of opportunities and possibilities in terms of tracking, how much distance people are traveling. And, we can also then look at how players are performing in different roles, because, depending on whether you're a defender or an attacker at the moment, everybody's listed on the same solo ladder. But once we get that, get more developed in that technology, we can start looking at, we can create different ladders for different roles essentially in the team. So yeah, there's a huge amount of possibility. It's still very much in beta, and I think by the time that their aim is by the time Worlds comes around in November 2024, they're going to have a pretty developed product essentially.
When I saw this online for the first time, I was very intrigued. And so it's very cool to see, the players taking an initiative to come up with some new ideas. And I think that is probably born of just a true love of the game. And I'd love to know, you've played for a lot of years now. I'd love to know what keeps you interested in it, and maybe what you think keeps other people interested. What brings people back time and time again and keeps that love of laser tag going?
Yeah, so definitely it's changed over the years. I've been playing 30 years or something now. It's a long time. When I started, I was young. I was a competitor. I just wanted to compete and win, and that was my objective. As I got older, it became, I guess, more about, particularly when I moved to Queensland, it became more about building the scene there. And I got a real kick out of growing over many, many years. And I mean, we struggled for years with numbers at our local leagues and our performances at nationals. And, it takes a lot of time to develop players to a level where you've got, 5 or 6 players on a team that can compete against the best teams. To go, going through all of that was really rewarding. And and that still exists for me. It's still there, but we're at a point with our local community now that it's very strong, and I've got a lot of players that have been in the scene a long time, and now they've taken the mantle, and they're the ones that are driving the community focus and, talking to all the new players at league and getting the league players to step up to the regional level, and they're doing all that work now. So I don't really need to do as much of that anymore, but I still have a very keen interest in it. I guess now for me, it's really a lot about fitness and health. And I'm 45 now, and I'm not as quite as sharp as I used to be around the arena. And I really notice it when I stop playing. It really affects my mental clarity and my, just my general fitness. So I play for a combination because I love the game still. After all these years, I love it. It's a fitness thing for me. I really love how I feel by having a regular regime. And I also think that it plays a huge role socially for people too. Like there's so many stories in Australia where people have met their friendship groups or may not have been ever really good at anything before, and this is their opportunity to be good at something, and they learn life lessons through that about humility and being a good sport and everything that comes with failure as well, and winning well and losing well, and all those team aspects that can come through. So I really love what it does in terms of giving people who maybe not into traditional sports the opportunity to play at a high level at something and grow and learn out of that. And that's what I feel is the role for laser tag into the future. I really feel like there's clearly an issue with technology addiction, gaming addiction, and stuff like that. Particularly in Asian countries, got real social issues with it. And I really feel like laser tag is a game that has enough technology in there that gamers can relate to, but it's a traditional sport. You're still getting sweaty and you're running around and yelling, and you're doing all those physical things, and you're socializing and you're working with a team in a team environment. So I feel like it's a great bridge for people who might have some challenges with getting away from their technology to actually do something that's healthy for them.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I know over in the States, we've had a lot of talk about, will virtual reality overtake laser tag? And I believe that is not going to be the case, because the key component that you were missing there is that social interaction, seeing somebody's face responding to what has just happened, that high five in the briefing room or the lobby afterwards, that one-on-one interaction you have in the arena is so special, and I think so specific to our game, that I don't think it's something you can replicate. And certainly I think that everything that you've said kind of plays right into that, and is a good reason why this is a whole sport that engages people who are inclined towards the screens but takes them out of it.
Totally, couldn't agree more. Yeah, and that's what I love about it, and that's why I call myself a lifer. I don't think I'll ever be out of the sport in some way, shape, or form. I might, even if it's more as an administrator into the future, or hopefully somebody can develop some things that help the sport. But yeah, because I feel like it really does play an important social role, and we're just scratching the surface of how popular and mainstream laser sporting can be, I think.
And it sounds like you have a lot of locations within reasonably close proximity, so that everybody has something fairly close by that they can engage in. Would that assessment be fair?
So it's probably one of the issues we have in Australia, actually. Australia is a big place. Australia is a big place, and it takes a long time to travel between places. And leagues, local competitions, like local leagues, are difficult to run. And so operators are, rightly so, profit motivated generally, and it takes a bit of it's like getting a big rock rolling. The hardest push is the first one, and you've got to get momentum, and the willingness to invest that time and energy to build a community is not always at the top of everybody's priority list. So that's probably one of the struggles we have, is getting local leagues started in different areas of Australia so that people can get into it, essentially. That's something that we hope to address with the Laser Sports Academy, is providing some tools and some training tools so that operators can be kind of like, okay, I don't know anything about this game, but I have an off-peak time that I'm not currently got anybody. It's a low revenue time that I'm willing to offer to a group of people if they want to try and generate some income in that time. At the moment, there's probably some operators out there that would be willing to offer the Tuesday night or the Monday night or whatever, but there's a lack of resources available on how to actually get these things started in a good way. So that's something that we hope to address with the Laser Sports Academy, is to provide the tools so that they can do that. They can make that decision. They just then have to find some enthusiastic local enthusiasts who want to pick the thing up, and they've got everything they need to get a local scene going. But certainly here in Queensland, we've got 2 sites, one on the north of Brisbane and one on Sunshine Coast. And so if you live in Brisbane area, you're fine. But in other states of Australia, it's much more of a challenge if they don't have an operator who's supportive, or a flourishing scene, so to speak. So yeah, that's the challenge for us.
Well, I hear you say 37 teams. To me, that sounds like a lot. I personally come from a place where I don't actually have what you would call a home zone site. I don't have a zone site anywhere near me. So I have to travel quite a distance just to have a game. So to hear that 37 teams come out from your immediate vicinity just sounds like you guys are doing something very well. And I admire the goals of the Laser Sports Academy, because it's really all about engaging both players and operators, and helping them to gather some skills. So I'd love to know, what would be your best advice to a new player wanting to get involved in a competitive scene?
I guess the first thing is you've got to find a community that fits for you. And I know in the US, you guys have got so many options in terms of systems. When I see what happens with Armageddon and how many different systems you play, like, most of those systems I've never seen before or picked up or anything. They don't exist in Australia. So I think the first thing for a new player is to figure out what's in your local area, what's within reach, so that you can go and find the right game and system that resonates with you, I guess, and the right community as well that you're going to fit in with. And then if you find that and you start to play, the best advice I can give to anybody that's kind of gotten a start and they want to get better is develop the people around you, because you can only get better when you've got other people to regularly play against and train against. So if you get sort of 5 strong players together and you only ever play together and you just whoop everybody at your local site, there'll be a definite lid on how high you can go. Best thing you can do is split all your best players up, try and develop new players and build a scene. So you've got 3, 4, average quality teams that you can regularly train against and lift the whole group up. And that will be the best thing you can do for your community. And for yourself, you'll actually become a better player because you'll have people to train against.
Now, one of the things that I have noticed in the United States, I'd love to know if it's similar for you, is just that standalone laser tag arenas, where typically these leagues are most embraced and developed from the ground up, they're becoming far and far less common, as opposed to laser tags being incorporated into these big multi-attraction family entertainment centers, where it might be a very small piece of a big puzzle and not given the kind of attention that a standalone operator might. So that's the trend that we're seeing. Is that similar where you are, and how does that affect the growth of a scene?
Yeah, it's definitely similar in Australia. I'd struggle to. I mean, there's a few laser tags around with just arcades still, but there wouldn't be a single laser tag venue that's just laser tag that I can think of. Hobart is actually just a stand, but it's just a very small site on top of a time zone, actually. So they kind of make money off the people that are coming into time zone. So there's a few of them around, but yeah, definitely the pattern is that it becomes an added activity to another major attraction. It's quite often not the major attraction of a venue, and that's what makes Laser Zone, our business, is kind of unique. Laser tag is the main activity, and then the arcades and bumper cars and stuff are like the side activities, or the things to keep you occupied when you're not playing laser tag. So clearly our arcades are nowhere near what time zone are. But does it impact? It does in some way, because when you are just purely a laser tag venue, there's a much basically all the management focus is in building the laser tag, and part of that would be filling out off-peak revenue. So there's a much higher amount of management time available to focus on getting leagues and stuff started. So it does affect it, but I don't believe it needs to be the killer of leagues and competitions. This trend that we're seeing, I think if the big players have a viable product, which is a laser league in a box or something very simple, they can go, okay, we know we've got these off-peak nights. They're profit driven. If we can give them the tools to make a little bit of extra profit in an off-peak night, they will look at it. So it comes down to how well we can make that into a product, and how well we can market it to these sites. That have they're not going laser tags not their priority focus, but we can find people who are willing to take on the challenge of building a league at their venue and give them all the tools to do it and show that it's going to support and build their business rather than detract from it, then I can't see any reason why they wouldn't look at it.
Does it seem to you that that role is falling to the players to be the ambassador, to bring the idea to the operators? Or do you think that that's something that manufacturers should be promoting in a different way? Where do you think, obviously our scene is very player driven, but where do you think the guidance should be, or where is it at this point?
Well, the guidance is nowhere at the moment, but it's just in players essentially. But yeah, that's our goal, is because we can't sit on our hands and wait for operators or manufacturers to suddenly decide they want to get behind supporting the sport. Manufacturers are in the business of making good equipment, reliable equipment, and selling that equipment. Until the sport sells them more equipment, they're probably not going to be that interested in it. So yeah, it's on us, and that's why big part of the reason we started the Laser Sports Academy is to take that on and go, okay, well, we know a lot about this game. Let's create something, and let's put some tools out there that people can use. So, it's a what would you call it? An act of leisure at the moment, or something that we do in our spare time. So, it takes time to build all this stuff out. If it was a full-time job, we probably would have already had it out there by now, but it will happen. We'll make it happen. And hopefully we have something out, in the next year or so that, operators enthusiasts can take to operators and say, look at this, we can do this for you if you want, give it a try.
Well, I think that's tremendous. And I think you and I have a lot of similarities in terms of how we're approaching just promoting the sport as a whole, because it is totally a labor of love. And I'd love to hear a little bit more, because I think you and I might have been getting Laser Sports Academy, and my podcast might have been happening at roughly the same time. It's been about a year. Is that correct for you?
Yeah, it's amazing.
So that's terrific. And I think the more we can get laser tag being talked about, the more opportunities we'll present. But I would love to hear about Laser Sports Academy, how it began, and what your goals are and what you're doing. So please tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so it's there's three of us that started this about a year ago. It's been simmering for quite a long time. I actually created all the logos and that back in 2017, and then I went off and was invited to build another venue, and I went and did that for a couple of years, and that kind of distracted me, but I finished all of that up. And there was a couple of other guys in our community. One of them is Ryan Holmes, his alias is Holmes, and the other one is Lachlan Whittington, his alias is Spider. And we were all starting to create content. So I just reached out to the guys and said, hey, should we work together on this and see if we can if the sum of the parts can be greater than what we're all individually doing right now. And so we jumped in together and started doing things a year ago. We didn't really know exactly what content was going to be received by people, so we just started doing different things, and we're now starting to find what people really like, at least what the current player base really like, which is they love reviews of tournaments, they love predictions for tournaments. This kind of stuff, interviews with players from different countries and things, they really appreciate. It's really sort of brought the countries a little bit closer together. I really feel, at least for myself personally, I'm building relationships with international enthusiasts, and I think that's a really key part of growing the overall sport, because we can all work together, we can all learn from each other, and support each other's channels, and just more content is better, because it's going to get in front of more people's eyes. So essentially our goal is getting more people playing laser tag is number one, and to also provide tools for players but also for operators in order to build leagues and competitions or get better at playing laser tag, but also senior players as well. Would like to go down the track of providing the ability for senior players to be able to lead and coach junior players better. The long term, we could get into all kinds of things, whether it's ref qualification and all kinds of things. There's a lot of possibility with it, but right now our focus is just getting content out that people like. We're currently building a website so that we can have all the competitions and leagues that are coming up, just a one-stop shop where people can go to see what's coming up. And eventually we would like to have be able to help create pathways for players and enthusiasts to earn income in the sport, essentially, whether that's doing workshops, whether it's creating masterclass videos that people can buy. We'd like to have a platform that enables people to be able to do that, essentially, because then if people can start working full-time in the sport, everything's going to grow as well. So that's kind of another medium-term goal that we have on our little radar.
I think that's a tremendous idea. And I think that what you're doing and building a platform is great. At this point, it sounds like you've got some of that footing set up. And as far as what you can offer as advice to operators, I'd love to know if there are some quick tips that you could share that might be useful to bringing an idea to a site that just doesn't know where to begin. What would you advise them?
I think first thing is you need to find probably preferably two, but minimum one, people who are willing to grab it by the scruff of the neck and run with it, and put the time and energy into it, because getting things going from a zero start is not easy. It takes, you've got to start. The first thing you start with is get a list on your front desk and ask customers whether they'd be interested in joining a league. Once you get to 20 or 30 names, you can get something started. That's the easiest way. Start with just asking people that come through, we're going to be starting something soon, a league or a competition. Would you guys be interested? We'll just reach out and let you know when it's happening. And then if you can find your one or two players that take it on as their project, to push it, and they've got to be the consistent face that's there every week. I always say to my guys that if you were doing martial arts lessons and your martial arts instructor changed every week, how inspired would you to be to stick with the martial art? It's one of those things where the figurehead needs to be a charismatic leader who kind of people can look up to, and respect, and they need to drive everything initially. You need that charismatic leader to kind of drive things, and then once things are going, then you can kind of hand over to the community to do different tasks and roles. But initially it really requires the effort of one or two people, and you don't need to make the league or competition complicated. When we first started at our site, we just had every week the teams would change. So you'd rock up and the teams would be different each week, so you get an opportunity to play with different players, but there'd still be a ladder. So based upon the results of the week, every player on each team would get a certain amount of points. So throughout the season, if you were regularly attending and on average your team was doing well, you would finish higher on the ladder. And then we'll still have an award presentation at the end of the season and all that kind of stuff. So that's a great way just to get started while people are still figuring out if they want to do this in their discretionary time, whether they like this game or not. Your attendance fluctuate. People might come this week and not that week. That happens when you're first starting, and you've got to get through that stage. And then when you get a year or two in, you can go to more of a fixed team league where you fix the teams for the season. We do a 10-week season here in Brisbane, and that then takes it to another level, because people have the challenge of working with the same group of players over the course of a season, and improving team play and all that kind of stuff. So it means that the skill level can go up a notch, essentially. So it's a progression that happens, and that's our aim. Is we want to teach how you can do that progression. It's not overly difficult, but it really requires effort. And the most important thing in the early days is getting right on top of the cultural pieces, and you need somebody who can manage. It's a sport, and people are getting heated about things, and oh my god, that person cheated and things like that. So you need to set really clear standards in terms of what behaviours are acceptable, how we talk to each other. When there's a conduct matter, we call it, there's a behaviour that's not acceptable, we have to address it straight away. You can't let things simmer, and you can't let conflicts between players just exist in the space. It creates an unnecessary tension, which is really unattractive to new people. So if you want to retain new players, you need to iron out all of that stuff and have a culture where players are pulling other players up on bad behaviours. So it's not all up to the league coordinator. It's just a thing. This is how we do it here. That we don't pick on the new guy. If he's here for the first night, you don't run in from 6 meters away and get a big denial on them trying to get the base or anything like that. Just let them get the base, let them find their feet. Support the new players to fall in love with the game, essentially, so that we can build our scene up. So that's probably more than one thing, but that's a couple of key things, I think.
No, I think you've hit some very good points there, and especially just off of the last thing you were saying. I think that it's so important for the more hardcore enthusiasts to do exactly what you're saying and be encouraging, because I have heard question or a concern about, are members good for a business? Because if a member is supportive, you can bring more people in. And if a member is bashing the birthday party, that can be a real detriment. So I think that there is a real need for members to kind of police their own behavior and be good stewards and good ambassadors for the sport, if anything is to grow, and for an operator to welcome you to try and do something.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there was a real narrative, particularly in the early 2000s, that members was a dirty word kind of thing. This is when a lot of leagues and tournaments really started to get shut down, particularly in the US. I heard this was an issue that was had, and this is the scene in the US used to be really strong in the 90s, and then this is the zone scene at least, and then it kind of dropped right down in the early 2000s around the release of the TNN fusion system, which had something to do with it, but. I think also just because operators become a lot less, enthusiastic about leagues because of the, members became a dirty word because of the behavioural issues. But they don't necessarily need to be when the culture is managed correctly. It's actually, I think, 180 degrees the opposite way, and they become very encouraging, and they can really support players to come into the business. And they have friends visit from out of town and they bring them in to play, and they actually bring business to the venue. We have a junior league that we run on a Wednesday afternoon for kids 8 to 14 years. And we also have a homeschool league for kids who are homeschooled. That's on a Wednesday morning. And the amount of those kids that have their birthday parties there, or, come on the school holidays because they love it. It's not just about the money that we make on the league. We get these evangelists, essentially, that basically, just tell everybody about it and bring people in and all this kind of stuff. So I believe if the behavioural things are managed correctly, they become an asset rather than an issue.
Absolutely. And on that note, and looking forward to hopefully more leagues developing and more growth in the scene, what do you predict for the future of the competitive laser tag scene going forward?
Okay, so I probably have a little bit of out there views on this. I think long term, I think where we'll end up is we need a broadcast version of the game. So at the moment, we have a version of the game which is great for enthusiasts. We love it, but for a new player viewing it, it's complicated. There's lots of focal points. So sometimes you have multi-level arenas where there's 16 duels happening in all these different places. To try and capture the game on camera and broadcast it to the public in a mainstream sense is extremely difficult. So I feel like at some stage we need to create something which is simpler, potentially 2 teams. I like to get the 3-team thing, but this doesn't necessarily have to be one game either. Maybe our sport can have a couple of different formats that accumulate to create a match. Who knows? But I think we need to create a simpler broadcast version of the game at some stage. That's not at the expense of what we have now. I think what we have now, it will get kept. It's the ultimate test of all the skills. The analogy I give in Australia, probably the Americans might not know much about cricket, but we have a sport called cricket, where they played for 5. The original version of the game was a 5-day game called a test match. And what happened is in the 80s, they realised that it was just too long. They needed to shorten the format of the game to get people in. So they created a shorter 1-day version of the game. And then about 20 years ago, they realised that people's attention span is getting even shorter. We need to shorten the game again. So they created this thing called 2020, which is a 3-hour version of the game, where it's just like the people go out and they just belt the ball around everywhere. There's nowhere near the amount of skills involved in it as Test cricket, but it gets a lot of new viewers in, and it gets the kids excited, and it's they make a big song and dance, and there's fireworks going off, and it's a completely different brand to the Test cricket. And I think we need our 2020 version of the game, but we keep our ultimate Test, which is what we currently have, the 3 teams, 5 players. What we're doing at the moment is beautiful, and I love it. I hope we never lose it. I think that's one aspect to it. And then the other aspect for the future of the game is the distribution of the game. So that comes down to how can we get more leagues and competitions running? Potentially, can we create a mobile version or something that we can pop, a pop-up version, which replicates enough of the skills that we have in our indoor version, but we're not relying on, these are the traditional party venue sites to host these things. We could actually just pop them up in a gym or basketball court or anywhere, and we could replicate the arenas in different parts of the globe, and that'll address a lot of the issues we have around, in Asia at the moment. They don't have a lot of, they probably don't have the space for big indoor venues like what we play our competitions in at the moment, but they do have a lot of basketball courts. So if we had a little pop-up version that we could take to places like that, it means that we could distribute the game better. So it'll open up a whole bunch of new markets for us. So I think those two pieces are how we're going to grow the sport in the long term. For the time being, though, we just keep getting content out there. I think that's another part of it, doing what you're doing what we're doing. Anybody else who wants to put content out there, it's like, let's just get a big body of work up so that when we do finally break into the mainstream, people have somewhere to go and learn the history, and all the interviews that you've done with all the legends in laser tag are just like so gold, like capturing all that history. And George Carter III, did you play with him? Did you play
I
a
did.
laser tag game with him?
Yes,
That
on laser tag day.
Yeah.
Founder of laser tag. That was quite an honor.
Yeah, I bet it was. I mean, things like that, that's now on YouTube forever. So, when we do break through one day, all the kiddies are going to have our channels to go back in history and look at all this stuff, and they've got things to consume. So it's going to keep them more interested in it. So what we're doing is the right first step, I believe, by just getting content out, and we'll address the other issues later. And then, of course, there's all the great technology that players are creating, like the Kiwis who've got this player tracking technology, and I'm sure there's other players working on other developments in the sport. People are always working on new scoreboards and different way to put stats together, and tournament managers, and all this technology and software. We can combine it all together to create a product which is really appealing. And we'll get more people interested too, or at least retain a lot of people when they start coming into the sport.
Wholeheartedly agree. And where can you direct people to find Laser Sports Academy's content?
The best place to go is YouTube. I think that's YouTube / Laser Sports Academy. Just type into the search bar Laser Sports Academy into YouTube. That's the best place. We will have a website coming soon in the next few months, I hope. We do have a TikTok and Facebook account as well, but you should be able to find all our links via our YouTube. We have all our links in any one of our YouTube videos. So that's the best place to start. Go to some of our playlists. Ryan Holmes has done some great playlists for beginners. Like if you're a new player and want to learn the basics, like he's just done instructional videos on some of the basic skills. And I've done a bunch of interviews with getting the origin stories of some of the scenes. So if you're into history and hearing from some of the old players, then go check those out as well.
Absolutely. Well, I admire what you're doing, and I hope lots of people now find Laser Sports Academy. And I'd love to end with a little bit of rapid fire tag talk. I like to throw some quick questions at you with some quick answers back. You game?
Oh, okay, absolutely.
Okay. What is your favorite laser tag system?
Ooh, okay. Probably, I'd have to say probably version 4.
Okay.
Version 4 zone systems. Yep.
Favorite game format?
Probably it would have to be the nationals format, team format, but it's close second. I love elimination too. Team elimination.
Coolest place that you've ever visited because of laser tag?
Visited because of laser tag. Probably Finland. When we went to Finland, 2011. Loved going there. It was beautiful. In summer, they get 2 weeks of really beautiful weather in the middle of the year. That's when we went. It was great.
Very nice. Coolest person that you've ever met through laser tag?
I can't go. Oh, you're pretty good, Tiv. This has been a great interview. I really respect Movement, Andreas from Sweden. He does a huge amount for the sport, and I really respect the commitment that he has to the game.
Very nice. Coolest prize that you've ever received at laser tag?
Coolest prize I've ever received. This is boring, but I don't know if I've received anything other than trophies. That's all it's been, just been trophies. I know in the early days they've received arcade machines for the first ever winners, but I wasn't playing in the first one, unfortunately, so I missed out on the arcade machines. But unfortunately, I can't give you anything other than trophies.
Okay. What's your favorite energy drink to keep you running on the move?
do not. Coffee. Coffee is my energy drink.
And what's your favorite brand of "we never run in the arena" shoes?
Well, I'm into the Under Armours at the moment. They're really doing me. I mean, you destroy shoes, right? So you go for something. I go for something that's cost effective because I know they're going to get destroyed in like a month. So, and they're comfortable, really comfortable, and they fit really well. So Under Armour all the way. I'm available for sponsorship too. If anybody from Under Armour is watching.
There you go. And finally, best reason to play laser tag?
Just because it's the best sport in the world.
That's to the point. You got it. Well, and I thank you so much, Ben Baker, aka Bootza, from Laser Zone in Brisbane, Australia, and one of the founders of Laser Sports Academy. Ben, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me and talk some laser tag.
No worries, Tiff. Absolute pleasure to be here.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Laser Unfocused Tag Talk. Listen for more episodes on the first and third Friday of each month. Want to be a guest on an upcoming episode? Find out more and follow my blog and website at TiviaChickLovesLaserTag.com.